Hello, New Hope family. Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Strunz, and I'm thrilled to have Pastor Aaron with me today. We're dedicated to helping you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back, New Hope family, to the Grow Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Strunz, and this is episode number 181. Today, we're diving into a topic that I think affects all of us, which is whether we realize it or not, our rest is affecting our mental health. And if you're feeling exhausted or anxious or spiritually drained, you're definitely not alone. Pastor Aaron joins me again, and he recently shared a powerful message on rest and how that's affecting us. And I think that it's one that he was wrestling with as he gave it. And it's could see it on stage. You had pauses and you had things in it that I don't think we're built in, but up there, you're spending time with God as you're giving it. And I don't know if you felt that way, but welcome back to the Grow Podcast. And what do you think about Sunday?
Well, it's always, for me as a preacher, a teacher, it's always easier to preach things that I feel like I have a good grip on.
Sure.
Right? The last thing that I want to be is a hypocrite. And so... and because I'm not perfect, I have one of two options. I could just avoid topics that I struggle with personally,
Sure,
or preach them with a sense of vulnerability. And this is definitely one of the ones that I think that I struggle with, and I'm not alone. I know we all do, but yeah, just really wrestled with, what's the right way, and what does Scripture say, and how do we? Because this is one of the things where it's not, well, maybe it is black and white, but I don't want us, we can't slip into passiveness or laziness, or right. Like we have to be effective and efficient in everything that we do. Like I by my nature am a sprinter when it, like, not physically sprinting, like that's important.
Oh, I could see you getting in the blocks.
I'm not a sprinter.
No.
But like in like ministry specifically,
Right.
I am a sprinter. Like I want to go and let's just go fast and hard, and then we'll take, but so like that oftentimes leads to just being completely gassed at the end of a ministry season. And that's not healthy. And so yeah, I all I have to say, something I struggle with, and certainly something that I was wrestling with. I am thankful that we did this sermon series. I believe God was there, and He was faithful. But I am very excited to have it behind us at this point.
Yeah.
I'm excited to move forward. So
I think it's been an impactful series. I think that we've seen that with the Grow Podcast here. We have, a lot more views on YouTube. We have a lot more listeners on Spotify right now. And so I think it's been a boost. And I hope it's been encouraging to people that we're willing to just even dive into it, despite our own, lack of training per se in the topic. But let's start here. Why do you think it's such a struggle for us, and I would even say for so many of us, to have a rhythm of rest? We know that it's mentally and spiritually good for us, but we prefer to push ourselves without stopping rather than understand. And one of the things you mentioned was there's a 6 days in rest, and we really do not do that.
Yeah, so why, the question you asked was, why do we struggle with it so much?
Yeah, why do we struggle with it when we really, I think this is one, a concept-wise, where it's hard to say you don't understand that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, and I look at myself, is we don't know how. Because even when we, quote-unquote, rest, we're not resting. We don't unplug. God didn't design rest for us just for our bodies to rest. Well, that's definitely part of it, but also for our soul and our mind to rest. And if we don't unplug, or we don't know how to unplug, or we're not intentional about unplugging and really powering down, then it doesn't happen. So even when we say, hey, I'm taking time off, or I'm taking some time to rest, and we're on our phones, or we're doing whatever, right? It's not how God intended for it to be. So I think that's the first thing. We just don't know how, or we haven't disciplined ourselves on how to do it. The other thing is just, I think it happens, it's a slow kind of creeps up on you, right? Like I think that we have the best of intentions, and then you add a thing here and you add a thing here, you add a sport here, you add a meeting here, you add whatever, and then before you know it, you had the best of intentions over here, and you're a few months down the road, and you've completely lost control of your life and your schedule, and you're just trying to survive. I think that happens for us. I think Courtney and I, with sports and kids and ministry and just life, it just kind of happens. This summer we were so intentional about us having meals together as a family, and taking time in scheduling our meals around when we can all be at the house together. We were really good at playing games after dinner. Like we would play like you ever play Pass the Pigs?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Definitely.
a quick game. We would play Pass the Pigs or Skip Bo, like just a real quick, just something to do together. And we were really intentional. And then schedules happened with sports, and we got busier, and it became like we would play once a week, and now it's like once, or then it was once a month. And now I can't remember the last time we sat down and played a game because we just got so busy, and it wasn't intentional, but because we weren't intentional on scheduling it, it just disappeared. And so I think that's what happens with rest. Is life happens, and we allow it to take control of our life.
Yeah. Do you think that we only recognize it when we actually get to like a burnout level?
Yeah. Yeah. Like we are really good at crashing. I'm an expert at crashing.
Right.
Like, but as far as like,
Wow.
it's almost as if God designed rest, not if we do it right and we have a rhythm, and we follow God's design for us, then we get to rest without really, I say not needing it, but it's almost you can enjoy your rest because you're not crashing. So, yeah.
That's, it is kind of eye-opening to me because I prefer to do life where I have multiple jobs and tasks and something to do all the time, and I live my life that way, and so I just think that I don't, and maybe many of us don't recognize that we're really just running every single day on empty.
Yep.
It is used to it.
Yep. Or maybe not empty, maybe like a quarter of a tank.
Right.
Like you have just enough to get by.
Right.
That's not how God intended for. Like I think I said, I know I just said in the sermon. Like when I started out this sermon series, I had conversations with people just processing it, and one of the guys who I have come to trust his just wisdom in my life, and he said something to the effect of, "We weren't made to go as hard as we go. That's not how God designed us to be, and yet we do, and then we wonder why we struggle." Well, this is like you're not in line with the manufacturer's recommended use, as we said that over and over again on Sunday. God designed you to operate a certain way, and when we try to live outside of that, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, I just, when I open my eyes in the morning, just turn the bedroom light on and sit in bed and think, okay, I have 5 seconds and I have to force myself to get out and go.
Yeah.
I think, quarter tank, maybe eighth a tank.
Yeah.
Eighth a tank
Yeah.
is running.
Which, as it turns out, it's much harder to do what you just described when it's negative 100 outside. I am learning, but that's maybe unrelated to this podcast.
Oh, man, so cold. Well, I was going to actually say that today in the opening, but I didn't. It's just like, hey, are you ready for winter to start?
Yeah.
Because
60 days, right?
Yeah.
So we've got February, March. If we can get through February and March, we should be
good.
Out of the worst of it, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, even by the end of March, we'll start feeling like, we can wear T-shirts, right? And so usually, I mean.
Last week was kind of, it was fool's gold, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like 11sies, a little snack before lunch,
Yeah.
It's all it is.
Yeah.
It always gets you. First spring.
First spring.
But yeah, this week and next week are going to be brutal.
Yeah, super excited.
I want to just jump back to that when we're kind of running on empty, or when the tank's low, and as I wipe my eyes because I'm tired this morning.
Yep.
Right. I was wondering if there's like warning signs we can like encourage people, like, hey, if you're feeling this way or something like this is happening, maybe it's time that you need to rest, or you need a day, you need some time. I don't know. Like, I thought about the lights on a dash Like, are there any of those lights for us when it comes to our spiritual wellness that we might be able to say, okay, I need some rest?
Yeah. Well, for us, like everything derives from the heart. And I can tell that I am running low when my heart begins to become calloused. Like that's a telltale sign. Like even before my mental health struggles, my emotional health, I will begin to shut down, or my body shuts down, right? Like I'm not as, like, the things that the joy and the happiness and all of the things, like they begin to dissipate because I'm just become almost robotic. And so that for me, like I know when I need to take a break, when like I'm not communicating as much with Courtney, or like in my study, like I depend on the Holy Spirit so much. And when I'm exhausted, it's hard for me to hear. It's hard for me to be attuned to what he's trying to do through the prep of the sermon and the messages and all the things that we have to do here at New Hope. And so those for me are things that I notice right away. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, if you tend to be more irritable, I can sometimes just feel the fatigue, like sit down at night and I'm just like, I can sleep right now. Right. And I think physical health too, a little bit. If you feel like I'm getting sick every week, I'm just not feeling well. I think that can be one.
Yep.
That you're overdone. But yeah,
something I'm battling right now, like significantly. I can feel that, like because I've not done a good job taking care of myself physically, like it affects everything, everything. So,
what are we concerned about? Like, why is that a factor when it comes to the battle within? Like, how is that affecting us when it comes to? I think specifically one of the things you just mentioned is what this is coming from for me is, if you can't hear the voice of God, then what?
Yeah.
What's happening to us?
Well, I mean, it's not okay, right?
Right.
And I think that's like we get so used to it, we get comfortable living at that eighth of a tank, like you said, that we just assume that's the norm. And again, it's not how we were designed to be. In order for us to be at our best, we need to be in step with God and the Holy Spirit, and that requires us to take time and power down and truly in Sabbath and rest in Him, and have that relationship, have that connection. One of the things that I have in the past that I need to do a better job of is I would schedule day alone with God, and where I would take half a day or a couple of hours, and I would be really intentional about getting away. I would go to the mountains when we were in Wyoming because there was no cell service and I couldn't be distracted. And I would take my Bible and I would go and I would just sit and I would read, or I would pray, or I would go for a walk. It never fails. The things that I was struggling with before those moments are always, at least they're more manageable after. God is not a God who, just winds us up and then sets us down and walks away.
Right.
Like, He wants to be a part of everything that we do. He wants to be a part of our decisions. He wants to be a part of our jobs and how we parent and our marriage and all the things. And that for me requires, I think, moments of reset, which is, I think, what Sabbath was intended to be in a lot of ways, so that I can step back into the grind and truly be aware that I'm not alone.
I think that's the key. I mean, the verse comes to mind, be still and know that I am God, right? And so I think about the times when I get away. We call them Jesus days, once a month, and at YFC. And when you take those and when you get away and when you have no agenda, right? I think that's a big thing. Like, don't even go with a prayer agenda or like, I'm looking to get this answer from God. It's like, you can't have anything on the docket, because if it becomes something that has an agenda or a checklist, it's just work still, right? And so when you get away and He's like, just stop for a second, right? Because even when we go say, hey, we're going to go to the mountains. Well, now I just got here, but now I want to walk this trail to the summit.
Okay.
Now I want to do this. Now I want to do that. And are you really still resting, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's it's a time when I do think God is asking us to get really practical, which is just stop. Like all the busyness in your mind, the busyness in your heart, and be still for a second so that we can, have community or commune together. And especially when fasting, and I know I'm heading into a year this year where I'm doing my fasting again, 10% of days a year, tithing my time. And it forces me to set aside the work that I'm working on. And so I'm not I'm not allowing myself in those times and then in those spaces to jump into the work the way that I usually do.
Okay.
And I limit myself to just getting together with people. And that forces my mind to think, nope, God has it right now. God's in control of this right now. I'm letting him have his space. And it's really hard. It's almost impossible for me because, okay, I have this idea that I should be more rested and more restful, but I feel like I don't have time to be restful.
Sure.
And that is, that makes me feel really guilty in my relationship with God. And so when I stop and when I try to face God, I end up feeling really guilty.
Yeah.
And so it actually prevents me in a way because I feel selfish going into rest then. And that's like the spiritual battle for me. And I'm just wondering, are there some boundaries or is there something we can learn about the real Sabbath that unplugging from technology or doing some things and like trusting God that would change us? Like, is there anything you learned in your study or is there anything that you came across that it's like, yeah, we really don't understand this at all?
That's a really good question. So I one of the things that maybe the most, I'm not sure if this answers your question, but I'm going to go with it and you can tell me if you want me to start over. Okay.
No, go for it. I don't think there's a really, yeah.
I think for me, the thing that was most convicting about my study was that Sabbath doesn't happen on accident. So, good intentions only get you so far, and you have to schedule it and you have to be disciplined or it's not going to happen, especially today culturally. Maybe 50 years ago it was different, right? Where you just didn't have, it could kind of just happen, right? Especially, back, my grandfather was really big on like Sundays you just don't do anything like that. Culturally, that's what was built into society. We don't have that now.
No, we don't.
And so for us in 2025, especially in the area that we live, right, the Bakken, and like this place runs off the backs of of the workers, and so there's that pressure. But so it's not going to happen accidentally. You're not going to fall into a Sabbath. You're not going to, accidentally find yourself Sabbath. Like, you have to be intentional about scheduling it. And that means making sacrifices. That's the other thing too.
Right.
To Sabbath, you have to sacrifice something.
Yep.
You have to decide what you are going to let go of. And if you don't let go of it, like, are you, in fact, saying that is more important than your relationship with God? And we all have to make decisions, and we all have priorities, and like that's for each person, each household to decide.
Right.
But you have to sacrifice, be willing to sacrifice, and set things aside so that you could Sabbath. It won't happen on accident.
Right.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay.
But, for you, I'm just going to ask something more directly too.
Okay.
Do you think you can trust God with the work that's undone?
Well, that's part of it, right? Like Sabbath is truly trusting. Like I see it in our church. Like, we have people that are faithful and they are generous and they are so willing to give of their talents and their treasures. Like, we saw it at the fundraiser.
Oh yeah,
That's insane.
Insane.
Like, I have never seen such generosity in it was awesome. I love this church.
Yeah. And so many people helping,
Yeah.
setting up, taking down. It was so awesome.
Love this church. But where we sometimes fall short is God, I will give you my treasures and I will give you my talents, but my time. Because really, if you think about it, time is the only thing that we have no control over. We don't know how much of it we have left.
Right.
We can't get back what we lose. Whereas, treasures and talents, there's some play in that, but time is the one thing that we have no control over.
Right.
And so we hold it. But man, like, part of being a disciple and truly being all in, sold out, is you're trusting God with all of that. And so, yeah, like, you have to trust God with your time, and you have to trust that he is going to be faithful. If you give back to him, that he's going to take it and bless you in other ways. It's just kind of like when we give, and I don't want this to come off as prosperity doctrine, but there's some part of giving of our treasures that we believe that God could bless us, and we see it. And I'm not saying it always happens, right? Just because you give 10% doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to have like millions of dollars.
Right. But I do think that, sorry, I'm interrupting a little bit, but I do think that when you start telling your money what it's doing, it's more organized.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yeah.
At least.
Yep. But it's I think we need to have the same mindset of our time. God, I am giving you my time.
Yep.
And I am trusting that you are going to bless it. It's, and it's was it Malachi, like test me on this?
Test me on this.
So the one time where God is one of the one times where God actually uses that, like, test me. Like, it's not something we typically do. He's like, no, like, I want to show you what I can do. Like, if you allow me to have control and you truly trust me with these aspects, like, watch what I can do. I think the same happens with our time.
I definitely think so. Is there success? And I think this is where my mind has to change and be renewed. Is there success beyond productivity? Is there a different definition of success that God is trying to teach us or show us that's beyond productivity?
Yeah, so maybe that's the whole point of this. If we are defining success solely by productivity, then we're missing it.
Right.
At the end of the day, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
All right. And do you know who your great-great-grandmother and grandfather were?
No.
Do you know their names?
No.
Okay. Do you know the names of just off the top of your head, your great-grandparents?
I
First
could
and
give
last
you
names?
a couple.
But not all.
Not all of them.
Okay. You probably know your grandparents.
Yes, I could give you their
Yeah.
names. Yeah.
I'm the same. I can give you my grandparents, a couple of my great-grandparents. I have no idea. So that's 2 generations forgotten.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you do on this earth.
Right.
If you are not in sync with God, it's eternally focused. Like, now, one day, I hope that I'm going to meet my great grandparents in heaven, and we're going to have a reunion. It's going to be amazing, and we're going to figure all that out. But at the end of the day, that's not what matters. And we put so much into the kingdom that we are building here on earth that it's going to be gone in a generation. It's going to be gone. What matters is that we understand the gospel, that we are living in how our Heavenly Father, our Creator, designed us to live, and that we are teaching others the same message so that they can find hope and peace and love and joy in the gospel. And so, like, that's, to answer your question, productivity, like, if that's how you're gauging your life, like, I'm afraid you've fallen into the trap of building your kingdom on earth, and what we are called to do is to build his kingdom. And I'm guilty of it. Like, I'm sounding really preachy. I struggle with that every single day. But at the end of the day, like what matters is his kingdom.
Would you mind looking up Matthew 11:28 through 30? And I hope that's correct.
Okay.
And I think this is a valuable, needed conversation. I'm very convicted by this, and especially when it comes to renewing my mind about it and the approach to rest in my life.
Matthew 11, what?
28 through 30. Like, just an encouragement.
Yeah, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light.
That doesn't match up with my guilty feeling.
Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
I think I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, Aaron. I think that's exactly what we need.
Yeah. Yeah, I think God has something in store for us as a church that, and even culturally, like there's something happening in the church, Big C Church, right?
Yep.
And I believe it's going to require all of us using all of our everythings, whatever God has blessed us with, to further, right? I think he's preparing his church to move. You right before you go into battle, you get the troops lined up and you make sure everyone has all their equipment and rations and all the things, right, before you say charge. And I think that, like, we're on the verge of something, and that's going to require the entire church, all of us, and to be prepared for that, I think it's important that we find a rhythm of rest and Sabbath, that we truly are, like, we're taking time to power down, we're fueling up, we're taking care of our bodies, and we're finding moments to rest in him. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest.
Well, thank you for joining us on this series. We look forward to the next month. That's going to become kind of more in and out, different weeks.
Yeah, so we've got kind of we can give the podcast listeners a preview.
Yep.
So this week is going to be awesome. It's the youth takeover.
It is. It is going to be awesome.
So next week, do I sit in that chair and I interview you?
The problem is we'd have to do it Monday morning. But yeah.
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so
yes.
Podcast will be, because you're preaching, so I get to come with all the questions and hope. Yeah, that'll be awesome. And then the following week, Dr. Jim Dunn from Oklahoma Wesleyan is going to be here. Wait, let me back up. There's a week in between.
Yep.
I'm excited about that sermon. I've already got it kind of.
Nice.
It's a one-off that I'm super excited about. We're going to cover an entire book in one sermon.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, this book only happens to be like 25 verses. But we're going to do the entire book.
Nice.
All right, so we're going to do that. And then Dr. Jim Dunn. And then, believe it or not, we're moving into our Easter sermon series.
Yeah, it's time already.
Yeah, so Easter's late this year, but we are going to deep dive into the book of John.
Oh, very
And we're
cool.
going to talk specifically about the deity and the person of Christ, like who Jesus was. And I think John does a great job kind of communicating that to us amongst the stories and stuff. So super excited about that.
Yeah, Sunday, Jesus is the ultimate leader. Is the message,
Okay.
and comparing him with the leaders that we look up to.
I've heard rumors
Yes.
that there might be some rapping on stage on Sunday.
I do believe there will be, yes.
You can confirm that
I
rumor.
can confirm that rumor,
Okay.
yes.
So the church should prepare themselves for that.
Okay, so Sunday morning, I was doing announcements, and I kind of mentioned, like, we're going to kind of keep it to where we can have a second chance at it.
Yep.
We are still going to bring the heat, though.
You're going to push boundaries.
You're going to push a little
All right.
bit. And so...
it's going to be awesome. One of my most, when I'm able to come, favorite things is watching the youth worship and how they do it. 'Cause it's just awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited for the entire church to experience that. And I believe God has given you a phenomenal word and message. I can't wait to hear you teach. And so it's going to be good.
I'm excited for it. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be great.
Cool.
I just want to say, if you've enjoyed this series and there's any part of it that you feel like a friend or somebody needs to know about, share it with them. Have them watch it. Have them watch the sermons. I think it just opens people up to what God wants to do as we enter into the Easter season, right?
Yep.
Transformation time. So thank you, and have a blessed day.